let's touch on the Buddhism, 35,000 years. Really the non-cipher degree, right? So we kind of veered off before, but you said that from like the Saudis going east is where Buddhism is at, right? So
Right.
the 35,000, and shit to about like the non-cipher
Right.
degree, 35,000 years. How do you see that?
Okay. And remember when I said Buddhism, like from the Saudis east, I said not strictly defined, loosely defined. Like Buddhism, almost like if you say the black church. Black church could be Baptist, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventist. It could be a million things, but there's certain characteristics that black churches all share. Certain things that are part of the black church. It's not part of the white church, and it's a part of all black churches, regardless of the denomination. So what I'm saying about Buddhism, I'm referring to a specific type of school of thought that probably revolves around the cycles of life and birth and death and rebirth, and karma, both in this life and also as far as future lives, and ultimately and we're the highest, where you have holy men and who devote themselves to this, and it's through the mind, more to a large extent through the mind. They also have certain physical practices, but the mind is probably paramount. It's not a necessary,
Right. So I didn't mean to interject, cut your wisdom, God, but as you building, I could see the mystery. You know what I'm saying? The science, see, we could draw it up with our science and say, and remove the mystery out of it. But then I could see that there might be certain schools of thought that may adhere to the mystery aspect of it.
right? But there's I'm gonna get into, because there's a reason why I'm setting it up like this, to go into this, and because Elijah has written a lot about the 35,000 years in his books. But if you can't pick it apart properly, you won't get the fullest benefit of it. As far as I see it. So these all these different schools, and I wanted to I was actually right about to add on this point, that I said through the mind, but also within that grouping, within that sort of culture, those different cultures that are that have that shared culture, there's also groups that rely on something outside of you, outside forces.
Like that's the mystery,
Right.
mystery teachings, right?
And then you have those, and it's a spectrum. No one's going to be, I won't say no one, but generally speaking, none of those schools there's going to be 100%. It's all out there. It's nothing in here. There's very little of that, and there's very little of it's all in here. There's nothing out there to rely on. There's very little of that. It's usually somewhere along the spectrum that goes right, and
because we know that the Buddhists were exiled.
well, this is why now you got to keep in mind that I'm coming from. Oh, you're talking about real world applications. I'm coming from the universities. When I spit the history, I'm going to give the history that the official history, what they dug up out the ground and
Official academia.
Yeah, and carbon dated and so on and so forth. I've got and maybe maybe I should preface this by saying I read all of everything that not only like Elijah or 5%ers or whatever they put out. I draw it all up with all I see, right? If it's not correlating with the historical record, I'm pretty much going to disregard it. Not in the prejudicial way, like we say, like I'm against CRT, and because it's not that one. But I need facts. I need actual scientific facts.
Okay, so with saying that, do you disregard Yakub?
So I can give you this example. A lot of this, I'm going to use the word mythology. Now, the word mythology, a lot of times the common understanding, especially amongst gods, is a different understanding than, because mythology is highly respected in academia. Because they recognize it for what it is. It was a form of history.
So it's philosophy and all that.
Right.
Stuff. Right. But
And they don't.
What we deal with as far as supreme mathematics is what can be drawn up. What can be. How do you see it? So now Yakub, you won't find Yakub in academia.
Well, you I would say you will. So this is my point. On a lot of this mythology, I just was saying for the word mythology. So a lot of what we would call NOI mythology or 5% mythology, which means, because the story of Yakub is mythology. It's historical. There's kernels of historical facts and truths in it. It tells stories, but I have not witnessed anywhere any single person who did all the things in the story that was given that I received. That at the age of 33 did this, or the age of 18 did. There's no single person who did that story just that way. No. So that story, by definition, is a myth. Doesn't mean now. There's not the line. This is why I say 5%. There's not the line that a lot of us draw between truth and myth. Like truth is this and myth is that. That line in academia is not, because they understand that there's factual truths in these myths, and then the myths also have other things like cultural tenets. The story had to be tweaked a little because we wanted to draw this out of it and emphasize that. So the historical, like it happened just that way, like a videotape. That wasn't the primary purpose of this thing for these people. Some of that was there.
Same thing with the ancient texts of like
the Bible, all of that, right.
Yeah.
And a lot of those characters. So to me, because this is your question on Yakub, like the Godfather, the book, that the Don Vito Corleone, that's a true character, but from that Mario Puzo wrote, but it's about 5 different actual bosses that really lived in the 20th century. He took a little points.
Of all of them.
So generally everything Don Vito Corleone did in that movie or in the book is an actual historical fact, but it's a myth because it's not one dude who did that.
One dude. So there's the Elijah is recorded saying that Elijah is not a man, but man himself.
Or Yakub is not a man, but man himself, right?
Yeah, right. So,
right.
Like Yakub.
See, I could see that.
Yeah,
I could see that because that would be there, and even like because we all have these Yakub tendencies, and the human mind does that.
Right.
The human mind does that. So now back to the 35,000 year myth.
Okay.
Right, of the exile. So what if you read Elijah's books? Elijah talks about 35,000 years. These people were exiled from the land of India because they're worshiping idols and many gods. They worshiped idols and many gods. They went away from what they were originally taught, which was basically some form of Islam, and they wound up worshiping many gods and idols and so on. These people, depending on which book you read, Elijah he'll only give little paragraphs here and there. There's no whole chapter like Theology of Time, where a whole chapter. He has no whole chapter anywhere that I've seen, but it's in many different books here and there. A paragraph here or there. Those people that he talks about, those Indians exiled 35,000 years ago, he will refer to them variously as either Buddhists or Hindus. So already you see already you see the terminology, and I have my thoughts on why but we'll pause for a second. But so that he says that, and you know that it's a sort of a mistake because he wrote one of his pamphlets in the 60s, and he's telling about the black man, like to be like Muhammad Ali, don't go to the war in Vietnam. Why are you gonna go to the war in Vietnam and go fight with those Buddhists over there and forget about them Buddhists? Those are not. Oh, he was saying they're not your brothers. They're not your brothers. Those are Buddhists. They worship many gods and da 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 da. And why are you gonna go and you worry you want to protest against the white man because you don't want to go kill them Hindus and them 35,000 years ago. So in the same passage, he's calling Vietnamese people who have no connection to Hinduism at all. He's calling them Buddhists and Hindus. And talking that Vietnamese people are the 35,000 years people. So you got drawing all this up. and then going and applying it to the historical record, because I want to see then what benefit what is there out of, I see the mistakes. Like Lord Jamel told me, it's easy to prove these things wrong because you can always pick a fight. It's easy. It's not about proving the lessons wrong. It's about proving the lessons right. That's your job. What is there to be drawn up from it?
Okay.
So Elijah with his 35,000 years. So to me, aside from these little terminologies, Elijah's story about the Buddha, about 35,000 years, all that, 100% right and exact. According to the historical records that I know.
You must do your own research, as I did.
If Mega did this.